Good morning. The rest of the bank holiday weekend is going to be unsettled and really quite windy, all due to this area of low pressure currently over Ireland with strong southwesterly winds over much of western Britain today. Tomorrow that area of low pressure will be over northern Scotland, but during the latter part of the day we'll see this frontal system rushing into the west later on. Now already we have some heavy showers, particularly over western parts of Britain, with some heavy rain over Scotland and Northern Ireland. That rain will continue through this morning, with the showers making their way right across into eastern parts of England during the morning. Some of those showers will turn out to be quite heavy, but during this afternoon some of the showers turning out lighter in southwestern parts of Britain, but very windy here, gale force winds coming in from the southwest. Shetland though perhaps remaining dry. A cool day everywhere, temperatures at best around 17 in the eastern part of England, but elsewhere just into the low teens. Tomorrow starting off dry and bright in many southern areas, but still really quite wet and windy in northern and central areas, and it's going to be another cool day.
Our live service of morning worship comes from Liverpool's Anglican Cathedral and is a service of commemoration of the Battle of the Atlantic to honour those who perished at sea during the Second World War. That's in an hour's time at 10:15. And later today our afternoon film is a tribute to the men and officers of the Royal Navy. Noel Coward stars as Captain D of HMS Torrin, a brave ship with a valiant heart, In Which We Serve is the film at 3. And back now to our morning sequence, which in half an hour has the first of a new 4-part series, France Panorama, looking at modern-day France as seen on French TV. First on BBC One, here's Linda Day with our weekly magazine for the deaf and hard of hearing, See Here.
Hello, I'm Linda Day, and today's programme is an international one with footage from Germany, Sweden and Denmark. We start though in America with a clip that raises some very interesting questions about our heritage and culture and why it should be preserved. Now that was really amazing. Did you notice the very formal style of ASL? It was really very difficult for us to translate, as it was incomprehensible without the written text. It's a pity really that there is so very little old archive material around. For example, there's nothing on film about Martha's Vineyard, so there's 300 years of deaf history gone forever. Realising this, it set us thinking about our own archives. Come with me. This is the See Here office, where we keep copies of all the programmes made over the last 12 years. But we don't just have copies of what's been transmitted. We also have all the original material we shot. Look at all these we shot in Mexico. 4 days filming for 10 minutes of film. Again, all this from Finland, Deaf Way in America, these from BDA Congress in Rothesay, Scotland, and BDA Congress in Brighton, and lots more. or later, though, somebody will accidentally destroy these and they'll be lost forever. To avoid this, where can we keep them? Let me show you. This is Windmill Road, where the BBC film archives are kept, going back over 40 years. Let's have a look and see if we can find the very first programme for deaf people.
Okay.
And then you order them through a different department.
I've been upstairs to look through the records and found that the first programme was for deaf children in 1955. Since they were transmitted live, no copies were made. The earliest copy I can find was transmitted in 1962. I wonder if other countries have managed to preserve their deaf history. We contacted our European colleagues to find out what archives they possess. Our first clip shows the inauguration of the Swedish Deaf Association in Malmö, 1936. Again, very formal style, but it's a record of a very important event in the lives of Swedish deaf people. Also interesting to note are the very small lip patterns. Maybe he was the Swedish equivalent to Britain's Arthur Dimmock. Our next clip is one which I'm sure will bring back memories of old school days. Remember those days? The woodwork classes with the smell from glue pots bubbling, or the cookery classes and the smell of burnt cakes. But very little evidence of the children using sign language. Our next clip is from Germany, the 5th German Sports Festival in Königsberg, East Prussia, and that took place way back in 1937. Hitler's policy regarding the pure race and of the practice of sterilising deaf people, why the salute? Was it because it was the early days of the Third Reich, hero worship? I'm sure that deaf historians will find this material useful for their research. Remember Milan, 1880, the infamous resolution when the educationalists decided that in future deaf children would be taught by the oralist method. Well, as a result, the National Association for the Deaf in America decided to record for posterity a group of deaf people using sign language. So, how can our deaf culture and heritage be preserved, or passed down from one generation to another? We can do this by personal contact, but it's much better to have a visual record. Well, we know that the British Deaf Association has some footage of Sign About, a video newsletter which used to go out to deaf clubs around the country, but it had to stop due to lack of funds. The London Deaf Access Project, LDAP, are now starting to collate old material. Only last week we received some fascinating material from Jock Young, which was found in the basement of the BDA offices in Carlisle. It was lucky that the BDA and the BBC transferred the original film to VHS before it was lost. Now, how can we coordinate our efforts in this country? Well, the BDA will be filming some storytelling sessions at their forthcoming conference in Leeds. So perhaps this could be the start to our own British archives. Back in the studio, we asked Leslie McGill to tell us why they'll be going to Leeds and why it's so important. Right, well, the LDP are going to the conference in Leeds with a specific purpose. There are three main aims, one of which is to film the storytelling, performances and so on. Now, we expect there'll be older people there with their experiences of school days, deaf clubs and their life in the good old days, which we'd like to film for posterity. And finally, we want to film the aims of the conference. Now, what we're going to do with all this material is set up a resource centre with a video library so that we can preserve the language. Now, this means that deaf people can come and view the tapes as part of their research or for information, grassroots information which can be passed down. Keeping video records of our history, I think, is so important for the future. Now, at the same time, I'd like to know of any deaf clubs who may have old videos, films, 16mm or whatever, which may be in buildings, perhaps in the loft or cellar, and may have just been left there collecting dust for years. I'd like deaf members who may recall seeing some material in these buildings to dig it out. I mean, any source of information about sign language or anything, and then to contact the LDAP so that we can meet and discuss with them how to transfer the information onto VHS or Betacam. It's so important that historical records are kept on videotapes, and I hope members or anyone else will bear this in mind. It's not only our history and culture that we have to preserve, but we also need to take into account new innovations. Here's a fascinating clip from Denmark using animation techniques. It's the Hans Christian Andersen story, The Tinderbox.
Hej, goddag, soldat.
Goddag, din gamle heks.
Nej, se Sikken en flot sabel, du har, og et stort tornyster. Du er nok en rigtig soldat. Nu skal du få så mange penge, du vil eje. Og kan du se det store træ der?
Hvor? Nå, der? Det der? Hvad er der med det?
Det er ganske hult indeni. Og du skal kravle op i det.
Mig? Derop? Hvad skal jeg dog der?
Hente penge.
Penge? Ah, ja.
Nej, vent. Hey, vent. Hey, tag det her reb om livet.
Ja.
Ikke? Ja, og så tag mit forklæde. Det vil hjælpe dig.
Tak. Afsted! Penge og penge og penge. Jamen, hvad skal du så have til gengæld? Hvad?
Nej, jeg vil ikke have nogen penge. Jeg vil kun have et gammelt fyrtøj, som min mormor har glemt inde i træet.
Udmærket.
It'll be interesting to see if animation films with sign language catches on, because who knows what future generations of deaf people will be interested in, and we do have a duty to preserve material for them to view. Now this is an example shot in Mexico, showing Clive Mason communicating with the Mayan people once they'd all adapted their sign language. But when they started using pure Mayan, he was lost. It's good to have some of it on film.
Watching this is fascinating. Clive has been in Mexico for 3 or 4 days now and has established communication with some of the Maya deaf in the village. But here, in a new village, things are different, and it's back to square one again with little communication. But watch what happens. One of the group begins to act as an intermediary. See how he watches Clive's international pidgin sign and then translates it back into Maya sign for his friend. Is this the equivalent of a Maya deaf relay interpretation? We thought we'd leave you with the full text of what the Americans feel epitomizes the love,
and beauty that the older generation had for sign language. I'll leave you to watch it. That's all for now. Bye-bye.